In 1953, the United States government ran a program to chemically destroy the human mind and rebuild it from scratch, not as a theory, not as a proposal, as an active, funded, government-sanctioned operation running inside universities, hospitals, and prison wards across America and Canada. And the fascinating part, it worked, just not in the way they expected. My name is The Witness, and this is one of my favorite files. To understand why MKUltra exists, you need to go back to Korea, 1950. American prisoners of war are coming home and something is wrong with them. They're confessing to crimes they didn't commit, denouncing their own country on camera. Some have converted, some can't account for entire months of their captivity. Military intelligence calls it brainwashing, a term borrowed directly from the Chinese. And the CIA's conclusion is immediate and alarming. The Soviets and the Chinese have found a way inside the human mind, a method to access it, rearrange it, and hand it back to its owner without them knowing anything happened. Now here's where it gets interesting. Rather than investigating whether brainwashing was even real, rather than asking whether their own soldiers had simply broken under torture, which is a completely normal human response, the CIA decides the threat is real, the technology exists, and America needs to develop it first. On April 13, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles signs the authorization for a program unlike anything the United States government had ever officially sanctioned. MKUltra, 150 subprojects, 80 institutions, a budget that remained classified for decades. The question they were trying to answer, can you control a human mind? What they discovered while trying to answer it is considerably darker. MKUltra wasn't one program. It was 150 separate sub-projects running simultaneously across the United States and Canada in 80 different institutions, universities, hospitals, prisons. At least 44 of America's most prestigious academic institutions were involved, including Harvard, Stanford, and Columbia. Some knew exactly what they were participating in. Others had no idea they were fronts for CIA research. The primary weapon was LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, a powerful hallucinogenic drug that had only been synthesized a decade earlier. CIA researchers believed it might be a truth serum, a key that could unlock the mind and make it compliant. So they gave it to people without asking, to mental patients who thought they were receiving routine treatment, to prisoners who were promised reduced sentences for participating in medical tests, to military personnel who were told they were testing cold medicine, and to complete strangers. And this is the part I keep coming back to because it's just so audacious, they took it further. Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA set up safe houses in San Francisco and New York, functioning brothels. They hired sex workers to lure men inside. Once there, without their knowledge or consent, the men were drugged with LSD. CIA agents watched from behind two-way mirrors, taking notes. The operation ran for years. No consent was ever obtained. No one was ever warned. And the men who walked into those rooms had no idea they had become test subjects for the United States government. I want you to sit with that for a second. This wasn't a rogue agent acting alone. This was approved, funded, and monitored by the United States government. The men who walked into those rooms never knew. Some of them never knew even after the program was exposed. Of all the figures in MKUltra's history, none is more disturbing than Dr. Ewen Cameron. At the time he was conducting his experiments, Cameron was simultaneously serving as the president of the American Psychiatric Association and the World Psychiatric Association. He was, by every external measure, the most respected psychiatrist in the world. At his clinic at McGill University in Montreal, he was doing something else entirely. Cameron had a theory he called psychic driving. The idea was simple and horrifying. If you could completely erase a person's existing mental patterns, you could rebuild them from scratch. A clean slate, a reprogrammed human being. To achieve this, he kept patients in drug-induced sleep for weeks, sometimes months at a time. While they slept, recordings played on a loop. The same messages hundreds of thousands of times, designed to override their existing thoughts and beliefs. He combined this with electroconvulsive therapy, electric shocks at intensities far beyond anything considered medically acceptable, up to 40 times the normal clinical dose. His patients hadn't come to him with serious conditions. Many were being treated for mild anxiety, for depression, for marital problems, ordinary struggles that brought ordinary people to a psychiatrist's office. They left without their memories, without their personalities, without the ability to care for themselves. Cameron died in 1967, never facing a single criminal charge. In 1992, the Canadian government quietly paid compensation to some of his victims. The CIA, which had funded his research, never acknowledged any responsibility. By 1973, MKUltra had been running for 2 decades, and CIA Director Richard Helms had a problem. The Watergate scandal was unraveling. Congressional investigations were expanding. The CIA was under scrutiny, and somewhere in the agency's filing systems was a paper trail documenting 20 years of non-consensual human experimentation on American and Canadian citizens. So Helms made a decision. In 1973, he ordered the complete destruction of all MKUltra files. Most of them burned, but someone made a mistake. 20,000 documents had been misfiled, sent to a record storage facility used for financial accounting rather than classified operations. When a Freedom of Information Act request was filed in 1977, those documents were found. They were enough. That same year, CIA Director Stansfield Turner testified before the United States Senate. He confirmed the program, confirmed the non-consensual experimentation, confirmed that subjects had been harmed. No one was prosecuted. No one went to prison. The architects of MKUltra spent their retirements in quiet comfort. What I find genuinely compelling about this, and I mean that, is the mechanism. It wasn't madness. It wasn't a conspiracy of monsters. It was a bureaucracy that asked a question, allocated resources, and optimized for results. The people involved went home for dinner. They had families. They read the newspaper. That's not reassuring. That's the most interesting and disturbing part of the entire file. Here's what most people get wrong about MKUltra. They think it failed, that it was a bizarre Cold War experiment that produced nothing useful and was eventually shut down out of embarrassment. Look closer. The research didn't disappear when the program was officially terminated. Techniques developed under MKUltra, prolonged sleep deprivation, sensory manipulation, pharmacological intervention combined with psychological pressure, appear documented in interrogation manuals used by American agencies decades later. In 2014, the Senate Intelligence Committee released a report on CIA interrogation practices post 9/11. The techniques described bear a remarkable structural resemblance to methods developed and refined under MKUltra. The program didn't fail, it graduated. Frank Olson was a U.S. Army biochemist who attended a CIA retreat in November 1953. During that retreat, he was given LSD in his drink without his knowledge. Standard MKUltra protocol. 9 days later, he was dead, having fallen from the 10th floor of a New York hotel. For 40 years, his family was told it was suicide. In 1994, his son Eric had his body exhumed. A forensic examination found a blunt force trauma wound to the head, inconsistent with a fall, consistent with being struck before going through the window. The New York District Attorney opened an investigation. It was quietly closed. No charges were ever filed.